So in my previous video, I showed you how to make the base card for the Peaceful Cabin Fancy Fold card, which I think you'll all agree is rather spectacular. So you should have, if you've made up the card as per my instructions, you should have this base card, this template. Now, to turn it into this, we need to take lots of designer series paper and cut it into the right sizes to fit. So that's what we're going to do today. So what you need is, first of all, pick a design to use for the front, what I call the front and the back. So when you lay it out, it's really the left and right. So you need a piece of designer series paper, or DSP as we always often call it, that will actually cover this area. So that's one piece, and I've cut this so that it's, now I have to use centimetres again to get these measurements correct. And this one measures 19.5 high. And I found that if I cut it to about 93 wide, it gives me the borders that I require. Now, obviously, if we just stick that down like that, it's not going to work because these panels need to go back. So what we need to do is take away a section here and here. Now, to make sure that I take the correct section away, I mark it on the other side. And what I do is, while it's still in place, I move this out. I know it's got to be this bit, so I just mark it with a cross like that, and again at the bottom. And then I turn it over and I write remove. Because when you come to actually cut this on your trimmer, it's very easy to cut the wrong piece out. And believe me, I know that because I've done it. You know, when you're looking at it like this, it's, you know, it's so easy. You think, oh, I just cut that bit out and that bit. But then when you start turning it over and you turn it round, you forget what you're actually doing. So if you do that to begin with, you know exactly where you are. So I'm going to bring in the trimmer. And you might notice it looks a little bit different from part one of the video. What I've done is I had taken some of my grid paper and cut the ruler off the bottom part here and stuck it on here and here. And I had used the inches one because I always work in inches. However, I realised that, you know, from doing this project, that I actually do need to use centimetres sometimes. So I removed the inches one from this side and I replaced it with the centimetre. Now the centimetre is on the back of here. So if you buy the grid paper, you've always got the option of metric or imperial measurement. You just turn the pad over and use it the other side. So I've cut out a strip of this and cut it right down so that it fits onto that side, so that now when I'm using my blade, I can come down and use the centimetre side. Now this will help. I don't know if you remember, but when we made this, I got you to do these little score lines with a stylus and a ruler. But now, because I've done this, I can very easily do that score line on here and get the right measurement. Okay, so if you want to do this to your trimmer, you might find it easier. So it's going to be easier for us today. So we want to remove this part. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to measure in 5 centimetres that way and 5 centimetres that way and remove that area. So because I've written on it, I know where I am. So I'm going to move it to the 5 centimetre mark and close my trimmer. Now, if you remember, I like to do it this way, facing me this way, so I can very clearly see where I'm cutting to. So I bring my cutting blade down, and because the cutting blade is very clearly marked here, I know that's where I have to stop. So once I've done it there, I can then, and now I want to do a line across there. So if I put this piece in here on the 5 centimetre mark, and if you're unsure, flip it up and look. Yes, that's the piece I'm removing. Bring it down. Now it's already at the 5 centimetres because that's where we've just cut to. Bring it back up, and you've removed your 5 centimetre piece. Now we're going to do exactly the same on the bottom. So if I turn it over, put it in at 5 centimetres, close my trimmer. Now I like to put my finger here just to stop it going too far, and then once it's going slowly I can move down to that 5, bring it up, place it back in my trimmer at the 5 centimetre mark. If you're a little bit nervous, lift it again and check. Yeah, that's the piece I want to remove. Make sure that's on the 5 centimetres, bring it back, and we've removed the correct section on the same side. So just to show you what we've done, we've cut that so that it will fit into our area here. Okay, so then you go ahead. Now, if you're using this design, you can simply cut another one identical, and then when you want to stick it, you turn it round and it will fit that way. However, if you're using directional paper, you will need to make sure that you do an opposite one. But if you do it exactly the same way as we've done here, so when you put this piece down, mark on the back of here that you're going to remove this piece. Okay, and then you'll be fine. So that's how I measured and cut those pieces. I agree, working it out was a little challenging, but now that I've worked it out once, whenever I make this card, I know that's how to do it. And incidentally, I have a book, mine's a huge book, but this is where I write down all the instructions for my cards, and then if I want to make it again, I just go to that book. It might take me a while to find it, but I know that all my instructions are in there and I don't have to work it all out again. So you might find that helpful. So now we need to cover the other areas. So I've cut out some more of my designer series paper to fit there and there, and these measure 4.5 centimetres by, again, about 93. And then we just needed 4 small pieces to fit on those. Now, I didn't want to use another piece of 12 by 12 designer series paper just to fit into those small places. So I took this one that I've used before, and I'm going to just use the other side, because remember, these are double-sided and all the colours and all the designs complement each other. So I'm going to use those 4 pieces to fit there. And then finally, for the centerpiece, I've cut another piece of designer series paper, and I thought it would be fun because this is I've cut it quite small for a reason. This background, it's a very pale grey and it kind of gets lost on that white, so I thought it would be fun to mount it onto some black cardstock to give it a border to make it pop. However, when I went to my black cardstock, I only had a very small piece left, and it wasn't big enough for this. So I've picked up another piece of cardstock, which was just in my scraps box. So it's a shiny mirror card. And I've cut a mat for that. And I think you'll agree that when I put that on there, it really does pop out. So that's a good tip. And then I wanted to put a greeting on the top and bottom here. But although I like all of the greetings on the Peaceful Cabin stamp set, none of these were the right size to fit. But it doesn't matter, because Stampin' Up stamps all complement each other. So I looked for something on my other Christmas stamp sets, and I found that the greeting here, A Joyful Christmas to You and Yours, was perfect to fit here. And then to finish it off, the Seasons Greetings fits lovely in that area. So that's what I've chosen. And to complement the black mat on there, I've used it on my 2 sentiments as well. So that's how the card's going to be assembled with all the designer series paper. Now, I'm not going to do all of this on camera because it will take quite a long time, and it's quite straightforward. You can see how it goes. But what I will just show you is how I put this piece on to make sure it didn't move about as I was doing so. So let me just show you how I did that. So I've taken all the pieces away from the card so that I can see them all. And what I've done is I've applied some DST, which is double-sided tape, to the back of this one. Now I've done it in little sections, very small sections all the way round, so that I can peel a little bit off at a time and make sure it all sticks down in place. So I'm going to do the usual thing I do, which is to take my tweezers and just bring off all of the edges here. If you find it easier to use your nails or perhaps a piercing tool, then do whatever you find easiest to remove the backing tape. You can, of course, use your Tombow Multi liquid glue if you prefer, but for this particular exercise I prefer to use the tape, and then I find, because it's a bit of a tricky shape, for me it's easier to use the double-sided tape. So now I've taken off all of those pieces, I'm bringing this in and I'm just going to offer it up and make sure all my little tabs show. So I'm offering this up and getting it to where I want to, trying to get a fairly even border all the way round. And then once I'm happy, I will just press down on all of those pieces and then release my tape. Now, if you find that anywhere, when you lay this down to begin with, when you first cut it, if you find it's a little bit too close to the edge, you can trim a little bit off here and there to make it fit. Now, obviously, these pieces just simply stick into all the little slot that they've been measured for. So I'm going to go off camera and put everything down and come back to you shortly. So all of the designer series paper is stuck down. I've added my greetings, which I've also backed with a little bit of that black card to make those pop as well. So what we're going to do now is just finish it off by adding the 2 cabins on each side. So that's quite straightforward. We just take the big stamp of the cabin here. We're going to use the fence and the little fox as well. So I'm using my basic black stamp pad. This is an old style one which opens slightly differently, but it's the same ink. And I've got a piece of Whisper White, sorry, it's called Basic White cardstock now. Now the measurement of this isn't critical, but it just needs to fit into this space. So I think I measured, I think it's about, around about 80-ish to fit in there. It's not critical. And then I made it a little bit wider to allow for stamping and cutting down afterwards. So onto that, I'm going to stamp the cabin. I'm inking up, getting my stamp well inked. And make sure when you're using a large stamp, make sure that you do ink the whole thing. Move it up and down around your stamp pad to make sure it is all completely covered with ink. And then I'm going to, turn that over because I've just dropped it. And I'm going to place it roughly centrally, but this will be cut down a little, so it's not too crucial. And make sure, not pressing hard, but I'm making sure I put some pressure all over. When you're using a larger stamp, you have to make sure that you do put some pressure in the centre. And then straight up, and you'll see we've got a lovely impression. So I'm going to take the two fence panels and the little fox, and I'm going to do the fence panels first. Now I'm going to bring in a bit of scrap paper because I know that my fence panels are going to go off the edges a little. You know, the old homesteads fence panels were never perfect, so I'm just going to take this one here and this one here, and that, they did actually fit on, but I'm going to cut the edges off this little bit because if you remember, this cardstock is slightly wider. Okay, so I'm going to use the dies that come in a bundle with this set, and I'm taking the die here that just cuts the top of the cabin away and then gives you the little bit of a slant each side, and it actually cuts out the windows as well here. So the way I do this is to place the die onto my stamped image, line it up, making sure that the chimney fits neatly in there and my window here is placed properly and there, and then I put some post-it note tape on and I run it through my die cutting machine. So I'll get that done and I'll be right back. So that's cut out now, and I'm just going to peel off that post-it note tape and that's cut the top out beautifully. Let's just remove that. So having done that, I've done two, so they're almost identical, but if you'll see, I haven't cut this one down yet. So this one I've cut down so that it will fit onto our card base. So if I just bring that back in, that fits into that panel there quite nicely. And I've just stamped the fox on the bottom there. So I'm going to just make sure that this fits equally onto here. So the first thing I need to do is cut the two ends off. So if I use this one as a pattern, that always helps. So let's get my trimmer. So on this one, I've just trimmed it to just past the little bit of decking there. So if I pop that in and pop that just, there's the track where the blade goes. So if I move this just to the right and come down with my cutting blade, that'll fit there quite nicely. And then this side, I can see that I've come 2 or 3 millimeters this side. So I'll do the same. It's not critical that it's absolutely spot on, but just so that it fits nicely within the parameter of the card base. So let's just try that. Yep, that'll be fine. So if I just stamp my fox, let's put that there. Now I've noticed I've got a little smudge there. I think I might have had some ink on my finger, but it's not difficult to correct that. If this were another kind of card, I could cover that with something, a flower, some sort of decoration, but for this particular card, there's nothing I can add to put over that to disguise it. But there is this sand eraser. It's called the Mono Sand Eraser by Tombow. And these are absolutely brilliant for taking off any bits of ink that appear on your work. It just takes it off like that. It's absolutely brilliant. So that's just a tip. So let's bring in my card again. And just going to stick these down. I'm going to use the double-sided tape on this, and the reason is I'm not using my wet glue is because this particular DSP has some foiled accents, and liquid glue doesn't stick brilliantly to that. So you'll find that the double-sided tape does stick better in this instance. And there's no need to be really precise with this. Just get some on there. Okay, so we'll just take off the backing from this double-sided tape, and there's no need to be really particular about it this time because it hasn't got to fit exactly into a space and leave a border, etc. As long as it fits in here and I leave roughly the same amount top and bottom, it's not really crucial. So again, just pop that in there. So the only thing I'm going to add now is I'm going to pop another stamped image of our little fox in the middle here. I think that'll show that our little fox gets everywhere. Let's pop him down here. So there you have it. Really nice, interesting, fancy fold card that did take a little bit of measuring and a little bit of cutting, but once I think you've made one or two, you'll find that they're quite straightforward once you get into the rhythm of it. So they're very similar, but they are different by using just the different designer series papers there. I hope you like this, and I hope you'll give it a try. I am going to come back with another video with the same card template, but decorated slightly differently to show you how different it can look in different designs. So just to show you the profile again there. Well, thanks for watching, and if you'd like to purchase anything from the Stampin' Up catalogue, I will add a link to my online shop in the description box below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching this on my Facebook page, you will see a button at the top which says Shop Now, and again, if you click on that, you'll go straight to my online shop. So you'd help me enormously if you like my page, follow my page, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.